Greetings, mortals, and welcome. Please present your tickets for validation. Thank you. Your existence has been acknowledged, and you have been granted access every Thursday and Friday. You will be accompanying your guides, Krista and Brandy, along with their world-renowned guest. They will be exploring an intriguing tendril of what humans refer to as reality each week, as they strive to advance you further down the path to the truths of your physical earth and what lies on the other side. Remember to please keep your hands and feet in the vehicle at all times, and do not exit until the craft has come to a complete stop.
Somebody's driving the show. Oh, there's Tex. Hey.
Yeah, I had already clicked on myself once, and like, where the hell did I go? Yeah, Will is having technical issues, so and I am much like my birth. I am a surprise here tonight. So
you are a surprise.
I have to like say something because I am sorry that I'm late. I'm sorry we're late. It is my fault completely. I will say this much. I played Russian roulette with my alarm clock and I lost this time.
Oh, yeah. I
completely lost.
You know what, Brandy, that's okay because I often do the same thing. I've failed and lost several times. And I tell you what, you're in panic mode some of the times, right? Like if you're going to work, one, a show, two, which I get it, I've done it. And doesn't it give you like that feeling like, oh my God, and you start rushing around, you're discombobulated?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like you called me and I was like, oh my God, just get this show started. Just go. Go.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of cool because I'm sitting here by my lonesome. It's like 3 minutes of showtime and Will can't seem to get on. And then I seen Tex's pretty face. I'm like, Tex, you should be sleeping or getting ready for work. Then I'm thinking I'm going to have to do a show all by myself. And Will is still trying to get on, but it will not. I'm going to add him to the stage, and that's that. But he's got no audio or video.
For some reason.
Wow.
And I called Will, sent him a message. He's got an issue. I don't know if he got my messages.
Will, if you can hear it.
Hang on, I can hear him. I hear him. Hi, Will.
Hey guys, sorry about that. For some reason, man, I don't have any kind of camera audio. I don't know. We've been on vacation in Greece and stuff. May have gotten zapped by the lightning, but I'm still trying to get this booger hooked up. But if we
well, on the bright side, Will, we can hear you loud and clear, which is the most important thing.
Well, we may just have to go with this till this thing. It says I'm using my camera somewhere else, and I'm not. So I don't know what's wrong with this stupid thing. That's why I hate electronics. But we're still good, buddy. Go ahead. I'm ready. Been ready all for months to get this going.
Well, with the exception of Brandy, I'm kind of glad we don't see your face because you're certainly more handsome than Tex or I could ever be.
Well, I doubt that, man. I need one of them bandanas, man. So
hey, man, they're in the works. They're in production. I'm coming out with BMR bandanas hopefully by Christmas. I've only been through 19 vendors. They all want to charge me $20 per bandana. Oh, man, I'm like, dude, how am I supposed to sell these? People give me $10 and I got to pay 20.
This what's crazy. This stupid thing says you're in the show. Everyone can see and hear you, but that just ain't so. So anyway, that's what it's showing here on my screen. So I apologize, guys. I have nothing to do with this, but
that's okay. we have a nice grayish green darkness to look into, like I'm looking into the
Screen or
abyss. Yeah.
yeah, but it is great to hear from you, Will,
It is
even though we
great to be
can't see
heard
you.
from and to see you guys too, man. We got a relationship there that always works pretty good. So I appreciate y'all for what y'all done for me and what you do for Bigfoot, and in this Bigfoot quote community unquote. Y'all did really,
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah. Here we go. Well, see, I got it. It's always right by my side. It's like the Bible, Bigfoot.
Well, buddy, I appreciate it. For 449 pages, I think it ought to be. But I'm working on book 2. I'm trying to catch up with you, Rob, having book 2 ready, and I'm probably 14 chapters in. I'm adding pictures as we go. I'm going to give more pictures, more text this time. But I think everybody really enjoyed it. I've got some good stories, things that's happened to me that I didn't include before, and then some people that have finally given me permission to use some of their stories. People that I know, I think that y'all are really going to enjoy. That just shows the cunning of these creatures, the enormity of these creatures, and or beings, whatever you want to call them. And so, but it's going to be, I hope it'll be really, really good. And I'm going to probably have one more after this and do a picture book. And then, after that right there, I hope they'll have enough pictures to do another picture book. So,
Your first book does have a fair amount of pictures in it. I mean, it is pretty cool. And don't worry about catching up to me because your book is thick. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you take my 2 books, if you take my 2 books and slap them together, I'm still probably a 1/4 inch thin. So you're doing fine.
well,
All
buddy,
right, Rob, that means you got to do one more book to get caught up.
I'm doing one more about my paranormal life, but it's not, the show's not about me. You can find me on it. By the way, everybody can find my books on Amazon. Just type
it's really a good book, buddy. I guarantee you, it's a good book. Y'all read the story. Like I said, I know I recognize some of the stories that you and I have told. They're off the camera, and it's really good. The thing that you get with you and I and Brandy and Tex, you got witnesses here, buddy. That was the thing that we did whenever I was a speaker not too long ago at the Louisiana Bigfoot conference down there in Natchitoches, and we had 5 speakers. And the cool thing about it was all 5 speakers had actually seen Bigfoot, had actually given you eyewitness accounts. And I hope it all went well. If I was the worst one there, then those other guys were still wonderful. So really, really good. We had about 2,000 people show up.
Wow.
And so again, had Keith Crabtree, my friend there from the Star of the Legend Boggy Creek there with me. And so he's fixing to kind of phase out doing this stuff. He's wanting to do some fishing, getting him a house there on Caddo Lake. So we'll miss Keith, but nevertheless, man, it's been just a good year. I've been doing some stuff here. I've got something coming up pretty soon with the Texla Research Group there, and they're doing another deal about Boggy Creek. They're finishing up their documentary that they have right there, and I've got a book signing here pretty soon to do. And then getting ready, man, I've been getting so many calls from people. This is the thing I love about this, man. I've made so many friends, but I've gotten so many calls from people lately. They're not seeing the Bigfoot, but the Bigfoot are coming right behind their house. They're banging on the side of their houses. And I think it's going to be, once this weather gets stabilized, I think it's going to be a really exciting fall. Fall is a great time. Folks, if you want to take up Bigfoot hunting, this is going to be the time for sure, because fall, they get out. It's like we do. We had these first cool mornings, man, we feel like doing something. I get a lot of pictures. Actually been very fortunate the last couple of years, start out in maybe August and September with a little bit. Boy, October, November, December through March, man, it's really, really gets kicked up there. So if y'all want to start this is a good time to do it. Get out there, look at some of your boat. If you don't have any land you can go to on your own, go to some of these boat ramps, some of these public boat ramps. You'd be surprised. We've had several sightings there on some of these boat ramps where we have been down there at night, and all of a sudden the Bigfoot start hollering, or else somebody will have dumped some fish heads or something like that. And so then you go up there, then all of a sudden you're having a sighting, you're having an encounter. So do that. Your state parks, work really well. And then too, we've always said before there, any of your waterways there, if you want to have an encounter, waterway is a good place to get started. But it really is going to be, I think it's going to be really good. Go ahead, guys.
No, I think it's good too. And Tex and I earlier on the show, I did earlier. We were talking a little, we were kind of, going back and forth, and I had brought up And it's interesting that you bring up about the waterways. Now, as we all know, in our great United States here, with the coastal waters, with the hurricane that came through, Florida, the Carolinas, Georgia.
Right.
Hey, Will, let me ask you, with all the winds, that water flushing out, and drowning, unfortunately, a lot of these towns and cities of our states, do you think that that's going to push out the Bigfoot? Do you think there might be a lot more activity as, maybe their habitat they're drowning in today?
Yeah, I really do think so. Years and years ago, I had a lady that I worked with there at UPS, and she was my assistant shop steward. And she actually got to see one that had actually drowned during Hurricane Isaac in Louisiana several years ago. They were shipping it somewhere up there to the government. The head had been removed, but the body, she said, was still 8 foot tall. It was in a refrigerated trailer that was to be driven up there to the rest of the stuff like that. And so it had messed it up. I know 2 years ago when we were at a Keys camp out there that we had in the spring, we had a tornado that day. And I thought, oh man, this is just not going to be worth anything. No, nobody's going to have any encounters. And basically everybody there had an encounter that night of some type, whether it was a sighting, whether it was Bigfoot throwing rocks, whether it was the growling, the tree knocking. And it just unreal just how that affected those creatures, like the creatures like that. It's the same way it does it. Go ahead, bud.
I was just gonna say, we had the same thing happen to us down in Brown Springs one time. We camped through a tornado. I mean, it went green on us. It was bad.
Uh-huh.
And that night was we had one run through camp. We had them throwing rocks at us. We had one that we thought was looking at a damn tree till the tree walked off. And and then the next night, it was just paranormal activity all off the chain. So it stirs everything up. That kind of weather stirs everything up.
Well, it's really funny right now. We got a full moon going down here. I used to bass fish tournaments for so many years, and I would use what's called the solar table. That's where the sun and the moon, and it calculates their effect on the animals and things. And so you have an apogee and a perigee, where the sun is, where it's closest and where it's furthest away. But those times almost never fail were the most productive times to be out there fishing. You'd be on the way to the lake, you'd see all the cattle that were up there that were standing out in the middle of the field. You see the turtles hot footing it across the road. And so it's a real thing. It really does affect the creatures like that. And then also with the full moon, being a UPS driver for 35 years, I could some days, without even looking at the calendar, you'd see people doing such oddities and oddball things that I'm like, man, it's got to be a full moon. Sure enough, I check, and there'd be a full moon. So with the moon, the weather, it affects those just like it does us. And that's I don't have as much good luck really in a full moon as I do a quarter moon, but I do have a lot of luck at that time. Though we found a track one night that was so big. It was Stephen and I and his daughter, and it was actually down there at Smith Park down there at Texarkana, and it was so big and so clear we could see it without any kind of lighting whatsoever with that moon right there. So it really affects these things just like it does everything else. And we need every kind of advantage we can get. These beings are just so extremely smart. And they're extremely frightening too. You can, even though I've been doing this for this many years, I'm still nervous when I'm out in the woods, but I have a healthy respect for the Bigfoot, and I hope they do for me. I think they can read our auras, if that's it, or however you want to put that word right there, like dogs can. Dogs know who's going to mess up and who's not. I'm sure they can, especially when like Stephen and I, we got an area we've been researching now for about 6 years, and I've got one down here at Sulphur River that I've been researching for about 9 years, and they recognize us, and the way they react, I think, is totally different than maybe the way that they react to other people. So really, really interesting to see that and the things that affect it, and once you get started on that, finding the creek and them things, they coming back to like I said, they'll come to my wife. Most of y'all might not have met my wife, but Brandy has. She actually tricked me to come into her. So anyway, no, she didn't. I'm just kidding. I tricked her. I owed her money.
You're
No,
still
it
paying
wasn't
that
that.
bill, aren't you?
Hey, buddy, but I tell you what, she's a doozy, man. She has that aura about her, that nurturing instinct that they just come around. They do with most of you ladies. You know, we guys, we're rough and gruff. You know, us three look like we could be the next coming of the fabulous Freebirds, man, if we wanted to in wrestling. You know,
Right. Right.
and but you got somebody like Brandy. They're so pretty, has such a soft voice. They're the same. Uh, Being same kind of stature, built like what we are, 2 arms, 2 legs, standing up, you know, but they're softer. They don't have that imposing voice or that imposing character, you know, and it's really amazing how the Bigfoot will react to these ladies. When anytime we go, just about we have ladies with us, we're going to have something happen to us, and that I really think that's, and children too. They love seeing children. I've got, gosh, I've talked to probably 50 people there that have been around there in groups like that right there that said, you know, there were some people there that swore up and down they saw Bigfoot kind of skulking around the edge of the wood line there, you know, watching these children. And I don't think it's, you know, like what you have 411. I don't think it's a deal to sit there and hurt these children or anything. I just think they're truly amazed. They're just like a Bigfoot, but just a much shorter body. You know, so like the little boy a couple of years ago that talked about he was lost for X amount of days, and all of a sudden he gets up there and, you know, say, well, how did you survive enough? Well, a big old bear took care of me. Well, if it had been a big old bear, it took care of him all right, and we wouldn't have found him.
Yeah.
You know, but being I'm 100% sure, and being as honest with y'all as I can be, that was a Bigfoot that did that. You know, they have that nurturing instinct for children as well. I know 3 or 4 people that have had, you know, Bigfoot coming up to their windows. And at first I thought, man, that's kind of hard to believe, until I started talking to these people, seeing the looks on their face. Seeing the look of fear that they had at first, and when they told me about it, and it was all the same thing, from a man named Bobby Hamilton, who's one of the hosts on that show, Killing Bigfoot, to the man who mows my yard for 35 years. Never had he told me that story until 2 years ago. I'm like, oh my gosh, and thing would come up. So again, we're dealing with something there that we don't understand, but gosh, you know, everything, what we have is basically visual or audio, as far as having any kind of DNA or any kind of thing in captivity that we can study from. It's basically just based on the eyewitness commentary. And people say, oh, well, you know, eyewitnesses, they, you know, that's not a reliable testimony. Well, boy, I tell you what, there's a lot of people in jail right now that have been convicted by eyewitness testimony. And the thing is, I've said this for the last couple of months here, because I wrote this in my book, and I was thinking about it. Somebody told me, said, man, you just want your 15 minutes of fame. I'm going to tell you something. This 15 minutes of fame, 12 of those 15 minutes are ridicule, and I don't need that. I'm too old for that.
Yeah.
I'm too old for that. I've got too many things in my life that I want to do to have to sit there and argue with somebody and claim that I want my 15 minutes of fame. I'm glad to have what little fame I've got to be able to research Bigfoot, but I want to reach everybody. And that makes it worth something right there. Whenever, you know, they say everybody's got somebody they can reach, and for people to say, well, I can tell, oh, Will, he's you know, he's telling the truth, because he's always been a truthful guy here in my hometown. When people talk to me about Bigfoot, they'll say, well, that, you know, Fouke monster, you know, it's 20 miles from my house. They said, well, I never have believed in the Fouke monster, but Will says he's seen it, and if he says he's seen it, that's good enough for me. And so with that right there, you know, pretty neat thing to have folks say about you. But there's some folks out there that will pull people's legs, and that hurts us all. Anytime they do something stupid like that right there, all the credibility that we've worked to get, all the credibility you guys have worked to get.
Yes, right.
It's gone, it's gone downhill. And so people, if they want to be legitimate Bigfoot research, guys, most Bigfoot researchers never have a sighting. I mean, that's just the honest truth of the situation. Because I was telling you, I drove 1.5 million in my first deal at UPS, 1.5 million miles, and then I added what I had added to my personal vehicle. I'd driven about 2.5 million miles. You know how many I saw out of a UPS truck, or while I was delivering in my personal truck? I saw 2 in 35 years, and that was just by plain old luck. You know, so again, it's not a shame to not have a sighting. And when you can get out there and converse with other people, you're that much richer for it. Look at the fun we have when we go to these Bigfoot conferences, man. You know, I'm looking, you know, when we get to visit. So go ahead, Rob.
No, man, they're all like-minded people. These conferences, it's always a good time. But you make up such a great point and I talk about this all the time. there's researchers in the field that have known about Bigfoot long before I or anybody maybe sitting in this chat room or on this show that have never seen or had a sighting of Bigfoot. Sure, they might have seen some prints, heard a whoop, seen some tree structures, but oftentimes, at least from what I've experienced from other people, it's oftentimes the person that doesn't give a damn about Bigfoot, and they're camping or hiking, and they come across something that blows their mind.
Exactly. Exactly. It does. And, and I think sometimes that's, Bigfoot's way of saying, well, I'll just show you, and so, and doing that right there. And then that does happen because they're not out. When I'm out there deer hunting, and my deer season's coming up pretty soon. I know you guys have deer hunted too. When I'm out there hunting deer, I have a different set of ways that I walk, different way that I pause, a different way that I breathe, and the deer seem like they can recognize it. They know that whenever I'm basically up to no good with a gun for them for having a gun in my hand, and then you go out there a couple months later after the season's over with, man, I could go out there playing a trombone in a one-man band, and they don't care. Like, you didn't get me this year, you're not going to get me next year too. So it is. You're exactly right, Rob. People that are not expecting to have anything, they're not acting any kind of strange behavior, and all of a sudden that pops up with them. And I think that means a lot. They know who's like I said, who's up to no good and who's not.
It's funny that you were talking about how they sense stuff and everything, and I think they sense character and intent, and just like you said, just like a dog or a horse, but the whole we've been talking about. There's a case, and I don't know if you heard about it. A case out of Montana that we've been talking about the last couple of days a lot. I'd like to get your take on it.
Okay.
This old boy was found dead in his tent, and his brother, I think, is the one that found him.
Oh man.
And he was 2.5 miles out in upper what's the name of that dadgum place? I just went blank. Go. Big Sky. He was outside of Big Sky.
Yeah.
2.5 miles back on a side road back in there. And he found him, and when he first found him, he thought it was a bear attack.
Right.
And when the authorities got there, they brought in a bear expert and everything, and it was not a bear attack, is what they said. And they're treating it like a homicide. But they're not getting any details on what kind of shape the camp was in, what kind of shape the tent was in,
right,
or anything like that. But to be that brutal of an attack and not be a bear, normally if somebody's going to rob somebody or something, they're not going to tear them up like that. But I mean, I personally think we're either dealing with like a gugway or we're dealing with a dogman. That's what I think.
Well, look at our friend Martin Groves, man. If y'all read Martin's book, y'all know Martin very well. Martin, is honest man as it can be, and with his encounter they have, where he actually had a man that when I was out there, and he got killed not too long after him and Martin had visited there for a little bit. Again, the creature of LBL. I'm with you. That one that I told y'all the story, the one that charged up on me right there on March I think it was March the 3rd, March 3rd or 1st or 3rd. I can't remember right quick, but it was, I just left the Keith Crabtree camp out. This thing comes running up from the bottoms across an oak flat on all fours at me. If people who hadn't heard this story, if you have, forgive me. But anyway, so he comes up there and he is flying. He's running. I thought it was a big hog. And I sit there and all of a sudden I got to looking real close. And of course, we know Bigfoot runs on all fours. Bigfoot also runs on two, but this one is on all fours running up through there. And so I looked at him. I'm like, that's not a daggum hog. That's a Bigfoot. So, man, I took off running and to get down a trail, then get over there. And when I got right there, probably 30 to 40 yards away, I looked behind this big tree that had fallen. And you can see this tree has got these octopus style roots hanging out of it. And there's this gugway head sticking between these roots right there, and his shoulders are actually sticking out on the edge of the log that's laying there. And I can see that. I'm like, oh my gosh. And buddy, there's no doubt in my mind he's waiting on me, because he's sitting there being real quiet. So when I finally saw him, I stopped. And when I did, he was looking at me. Then he flicked those ears. He turned his head backwards like he had a hunting partner, which I promise you he probably did. And then he turned back and looked at me. And man, I already had my phone out. I got a couple of pictures. I had a 40 caliber Glock, which wasn't going to do anything but scratch mosquito bites. I take off running. I take off running back to my truck. And my buddy, I call my buddy Randy Crawford, who's one of my research partners, has been for years. And told him, I've shown y'all the picture, and he goes, man, we got to go back tomorrow. I said, buddy, there is no way I can go back because I'm having post-traumatic stress. I believe y'all are exactly right. There in Montana, there are gugway. I got a picture of a Bigfoot that time I went down with Duke down there. I went down there to stay with Duke about 3 or 4 days there in Montana. And on September, I think it's about the 16th, it turned like 22 degrees at night, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But anyway, the Bigfoot are there in Montana, but then they've got that one up there where I think it was where Teddy Roosevelt and wasn't it Bauman, wasn't that his name, or I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, Bonham.
Yeah, and all of a sudden he goes back to camp and his partner's being killed same way, and that's for me, that's kind of outside classic Bigfoot behavior, the way that they tend to act, because they don't have to beat up somebody unless they want to. But I'm like you. I think it's probably more that, or being a dog man. And folks, I believed in dog man. I thought of the possibility and put it that way. And then all of a sudden, I see one or two there that is walking different than a Bigfoot, but it's the same style body. I'm like, oh no, man. So finally, me and Stephen got Stephen got it with his phone, but we were checking cameras. Up walks a dog man, and he's got 3 Bigfoot behind him. And he's leading these Bigfoot up the trail. So dog man is real, folks. It's not something that we're trying to pull your leg on. We're not trying to sensationalize. It's not like a werewolf that turns back into a person, but it's actually a real animal, and it's big. And but gugway, they tend to have a totally different disposition. They call them face eaters. They call them whistling bears. They supposedly have 3 toes. They communicate by whistling. You're going to read a story in my new book there when me and Steve were down there the first night, coming from the Texas Bigfoot Research Conservancy deal down there, and all of a sudden we find there that sounds like a couple of gugway have run up on us, and they're whistling at each other and everything. So those are creatures that are real too, but it behooves us to learn more about them and to talk about them, because if we don't, if somebody gets hurt, we want to share what information we've got.
Well, there's so much little information about the gugway. I did, me and Tex were doing a show earlier. We had a call-in open line show, and it just so happens that Duke popped on, and Duke, as you know, is a wealth of information. And even for Duke, he it's one of those cryptids that he's not 100% certain on. But I will say this: I think the gugway has no problem killing a human being.
None whatsoever. Like I said, just the menacing attitude that this thing had towards me. And as far as I know, that's the only gugway I have ever seen. But I saw him from 40 yards away. His attitude towards me, like, man, I'm going to take you at any time I want to. I'm just playing with my food right now, And that was very, very unsettling. And
Keith wanted to know, Keith asked a question.
Sure.
He wanted to know, is there a size difference between just a Bigfoot and a gugway? Is there a size difference at all?
I talked to a friend of mine who's a Native American. He says that he don't think a gugway gets as big as what a regular Bigfoot, with about 10 foot tall. I called him the day after I had that sighting, and I said, man, in your folklore, quote folklore, just because it's folklore doesn't mean it's not true, or if it's legend doesn't mean it's not true. But I said, in your Native American background there, tell me something about the gugway. He goes, oh, Will. He said, please tell me you're not messing with them things. I said, well, I'm not messing with them, but I think I have one messing with me. And I told him, he goes, he didn't look back over his shoulder, did he? And I said, yeah, how'd you know? He goes, because, man, he's got a hunting partner. I think they tend to hunt, at least in pairs, or like the velociraptors do there on Jurassic Park. They may even hunt in 3s. But that dude, he said, man, he
Right.
said, those things will kill you. They have no qualms about killing you. The joke is, if you see a Bigfoot, just sit still, and let him walk by. If you see a dog man, just be on your P's and Q's. And they say, if you see a gugway, just start firing and shooting because he's going to try to kill you. I believe that, guys. I really do. That one had such a menacing, devil may care attitude about me being over there that it's something that I don't want to see it. If I see another, I want to have him inside the scope of my rifle, and just as I'm fixing to squeeze off a shot, because I don't believe in killing Bigfoot. Y'all know that right there. But that right there, it was a different scenario. I promise you. So
Right. Right. Now,
You know,
was that the picture that you had shown me of that one you had spotted by any chance?
Yes, that's it. Little black, yeah. And he was big. Now that size difference, as I'm saying, from what my buddy told me there, he said they tend to be a little bit smaller than a normal Bigfoot. And Dogman tends to be, they can get, from what they say, 7 foot tall, but they don't tend to have the bulk like what Bigfoot had. They can weigh 400 or 500
Right.
pounds, is what I've heard people say. The ones that I've seen have probably been, probably 300 to 400 pounds for as a Dogman, but they say that the Gugway has got almost as much size as Bigfoot. But the one I saw was about 8 foot tall, but he was wide, man. And then, had that, they got that daggum snout. This one actually had the ears, like I said, that he could move independently, like he was listening from one side and listening to the other side. So I believe that they are, and it's a very, very real animal. There's things out here that we just haven't seen yet, and because so many people are out there trying to ridicule, oh well, there ain't no such thing. Guys, I've been a Christian since I was 13 years old. I was taught all my life there's no such thing as monsters. I wasn't taught that out of malicious misinformation. It's just those kind of things you just can't. You just don't want to believe in. You can read back,
Right.
in the days of people who've had dealings with demons and everything else, but you just don't want to believe it. But when you see one, it changes. You realize, hey, there's some things going on here I just don't understand. And so it behooves us to again to do like what you guys are doing, to bring the information there. And if they want to ridicule us, like I said, there's your 12 minutes with my 12 minutes. Between the four of us, that's 48 minutes. We still got 12 minutes left to tell people the truth, and that's what we're trying to do.
talking about the truth, and I've got a Dogman question I'm going to refrain for a little bit later in the show. But I'm glad you said something that I'm very glad you said, because I promote this all the time. I've had people like on the show all the time, Brandy, Kristen, and to an extent Tex as well. We've
Right.
all had folklorists on our shows.
Yeah.
Yes.
And here's the thing about folklore, everybody. There's a semblance of truth behind all folklore tales. They started out in the 1600s, 1500s, 1800s. Back then, you guys, that's where all these things started. Now they started out, and there's facts behind these. There's evidence behind this. Certainly over the years, it might have been blown up or exaggerated. But don't you agree that folklore is a big part of the history behind all these cryptids?
I certainly do. Folklore tends to mimic reality rather than that mimicking folklore right there. Folklore actually has been based on what has happened to people. Of course,
Yes.
we love to tell stories. Yes, when you get excited, you may miss a word, misspeak, or some people may have a little bit prone to stretch the truth. When you're looking at something here in this country that we don't understand, what's the first thing we call them? Monsters. About Monster got his name. The last one I saw was April 23rd of this year, going down to Monster Mart of all things here. But we call them monsters. But I've only had 2 in the encounters that I've had that have actually been aggressive with me. One was my wife and son. Actually, that kind of changed ththings with a different dynamic. But other than that, right there, I've been there when they have had babies there. And most of, from what I've seen there, most of the babies, they tend to have them in pairs, like what a healthy deer does. And
Right.
so as strange as what that sounds, but and they start having theirs here, at least where I live, it tends to be around the last of December and the 1st of January. So they've got those babies around that time, but they have been and I've had a gun with me. Y'all know my friend Daniel. Daniel has, congratulations to him, by the way. He got to be a speaker up there in Anchorage not too long ago. There.
Nice.
Oh,
Very,
nice.
very proud of him. He's just really phenomenal. Very, very good researcher. Again, I'm very proud to see that for him, because man, he really brings some deep thought into it that's really going to benefit us, there at all. But old Daniel, he's he does it, and he's studied. We've studied there, and so glad that we have people like that are on our side, because he had never seen one at first, and so again for him to have something other like that, really pleased for him, and I just wanted to throw that in there. But it's a thing that we just all of a sudden you see one. Ask Daniel how it changed his life. The first day I took him to Ground Zero, this is no joke, and folks, I'm not kidding with you. He said, "Gosh, this place is electric." And I think it was just because it was the spring, and those things were just, they'll vibe you. They'll hit you with what's called the infrasound, or else and when they do, there's no denying it. It's a feeling like you've never had. Like I said, they did Stephen that way one time, and Stephen ended up laying on a gurney up at a hospital because it affected him so much. But you could actually tell that the air was, quote, electrically charged. And again, with some of the things that have happened to all of us there with whenever we've been around Bigfoot, and they've actually, hit us with that, or all of a sudden you feel like something's watching you. I used to think that's the biggest bunch of bull. Oh, you can't feel nobody watching you. And I don't mind admitting it, wrong, because you can, and you look around. Now, I don't know if I'm getting a subliminal message or whatever it is, but when I start feeling that, I start looking around. And there's been several times I've looked around and there's a Bigfoot sitting there looking at me. I'm like, holy moly, so there's things with that I didn't understand, and actually truly didn't want to acknowledge until then. So,
it's just like standing in line at the gas station or the local market. We've all had that experience where there's somebody staring at me.
Yeah.
And then you turn around, and sure enough, someone's got their eyeballs locked on you. And then you kind of make that contact with their eyes, and then you're kind of embarrassed. And kind of
they
look to the side,
They cut away on us unless they're Brandy there, man. Brandy and Krista, they look at them all the time. Guys looking at them, they're used to it. That doesn't even affect them anymore.
But yeah, they get stared down all the time. We do know that. That's just common for them.
But I could understand what you're saying here about somebody staring at you, and then when you finally lock eyes with the person, it's like, are they just staring at me? Do I look funny? Do I have a booger hanging out of my nose? Whatever. But then you have that other person. There's that other person. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's kind of staring at you, and they have this look of disgust, and they're like, they're mean mugging you. It's kind of like they don't like you, and you're like, why? I don't understand. I get that feeling too sometimes when I'm out. It's just kind of like you get that feeling like, something staring at me, and it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that at all, William?
Oh, for sure.
Brandy, when you really need to start worrying when somebody's staring at you, look at them and go, well, most of my friends are invaders.
They're growling. They're growling.
Well, see, that's just when I pull out, my favorite pickup line. Hey, you like rocks?
It's like it's like the people that sit there that they're staring at you like that right there, and you don't know what to say. Sometimes better not saying anything. But
yeah,
well, Brandy, be careful with saying that, because some people say, "Yeah, you got $20."
I'll say no, but I got a rock.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, well, let's go join. Yeah, never mind. It's a Detroit joke.
Right. I don't have the money.
You know what I'm referring to? Yeah,
yes.
over here. Yes.
Yes.
And Detroit.
Detroit.
I don't know. I can imagine that you would probably sometimes, it's like you can feel somebody watching you, and it doesn't feel like ominous or scary or creepy or anything. But then I'm sure you get that at a time or two, William, where you're like, you don't want to look at it because you already know. Already know.
Down where I saw my first Bigfoot, down around Sulphur River down there, I was delivering to an electric company here in Texas, in Douglasville, Texas. And I was wanting to get back on there because it had been sold and it had been made private property. So I couldn't go down there and hunt and fish anymore. So I was trying to get back in there, and I was talking to the guy who was head of the manager of the company down there where I delivered to. And I told him, I said, what's the chance of me getting back on there? He goes, well, what's your reason for wanting on there? And I told him, I said, I saw a Bigfoot down there years and years ago. And I said, I know they're still there. I said, because there've been
Yeah.
one seen right there 5 or 6 different times. And he said, really? He said, well, tell me the story. So I told him the story. And he goes, man, that's incredible. And I said, well, I said, it may be incredible. I said, but it's credible as far as the veracity of what I'm telling you. So he had to go down there one day. They'd take the four-wheelers and they ride down this gas line. And the man who normally rode the gas line was sick. And so it was time to go down and do the checks and stuff. So he had to do it himself. He said, man, we got down there. And the guy that was right across from me, they ride on each side of the gas line, checking everything out there. And he told me, he said, the guy that was across from me, he said, I never told him your story. He said, but we're sitting there riding those four-wheelers down the edge of that gas line. And he said, man, he rides across that gas line, comes over to me. He goes, man, he said, you ever get the feeling something's wrong? And he goes, yeah, what are you talking about? He goes, man, something ain't right here. He said, I'm just telling you. He said, somebody's watching me or something. He goes, oh, man. He says, he's, trying to blow it off. It's just your imagination. Get back to work. So they ride back across the gas line. They ride down a little farther, and he rides across again. He said, man, I'm telling you. He said, there is something wrong. Somebody's watching me from somewhere. And he said, you really think so? And he said, yeah. Well, then he started thinking about what I told him about that Bigfoot being down there. So anyway, he said, we'll just ride on a little further. He gets down to the exact place where the place is called the Crossroads, where I saw my Bigfoot that day, standing at the very first Bigfoot.
Uh-huh.
And he gets down there, and the guy stops, and he rides over, and he said, I'm not going another foot. He said, there is something watching me. He said, or somebody watching me. Well, by then, he knew exactly where he was. He was right there at the exact spot where I'd seen that Bigfoot back in 1977. He said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, we won't make any more stops. He said, we'll just ride down here to the end, check it, and we'll drive back. How about that? He goes, man, I don't want to do that. He goes, just don't stop. Just keep going. He said, if you get that feeling you're still being watched, he said, just wave at me and turn around and go on. So they did. And that whole trip, that's a 2-mile ride down that Deckham gas line and 2 miles back. And that whole time, he said, man, something was looking at me. He said, I could feel it as plain as if you'd slap me in the face. And I believe it. So, and like I said, especially knowing the story of what had happened in that area. I went back last year, August the 7th was the first time I got to go back there in about 46 years. And so they were selling, Mossy Oak Properties had bought it. And so I got invited to go down there. And so whenever I did, walk down to one place there on what's called Days Creek, found a sandbar, walked down to the sandbar, and there's a 16-inch Bigfoot track right there. And I didn't say anything to him. Oh, yeah. And I walked right back, and he goes, what are you looking at? And I said, what are you talking about? And I said, I was just down there, looking at that daggum sandbar down there. He goes, I know you. And I said, where from? He goes, you're the Bigfoot guy. I said, yeah. I said, that's me. He goes, is this where you had that first Bigfoot sighting? And I said, can I trust you to be, quiet? And he said, yeah. And I said, it is. He said, was that what you was looking for? I said, yeah. He said, you find one? I said, yeah, I did. I said, he's still here. I mean, or he or his kinfolk or his relatives or I said, but they're still here. I said, because there's been, one that's been seen here about 5 or 6 times. This whole gas line has had over 20 sightings in a 20-mile period of Bigfoot walking down this same gas line, this 20-mile stretch through there. So he thought that was really cool. And of course, like I said, I got a picture of it. And I actually found a place where he showed me a tree that Bigfoot were going up and rubbing their back. And you could see the oil marks on this tree where they go up there. And sometimes they actually rub the bark off there. But you can see the oil marks in there and where this thing had sit there and rubbed his back, made this big black dark spot and everything. And I told him, I said, hey, that's not unusual. I find that, quite often. He goes, man, he said, I was just curious if that might be some kind of animal. I said, well, if it's an animal, I said, now you know. And so we had a big laugh, but then that really opened up a new dimension to our trip that day.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's the strangest colored Bigfoot you've ever seen?
Man, I saw one day that was kind of almost like a bomb pop. You remember the old fudge bomb pop? He was really mostly brown, but he had some kind of a yellow, like a blondish tint there towards the end of the hair on him. and then around his face had about like we all do. They got a little bit of white around his beard and stuff like that. I'm sure that may have been from old age or whatever. But those three colors together, there is a lot of people. You see Bigfoot of every color. There's
Right.
I've got some white ones there on my camera. I actually got pictures of baby white ones this year, right there in front of my camera. There's some that are blonde. There's some that are brown. Some that are a rust color. Some that are solid black. Truly, it's about as variant as what that we have as far as our hair color. And I've seen I've seen different ones. I've got pictures of most of them, you know. And so it is a deal but that's the strangest color that I've seen. But again, and that being said, not all of them have the cone heads. I'm like, oh gosh, man, I've got an awakening coming here. There's some here with round heads. One of my best buddies in the world told me, he said, Will, I'm not trying to call you a liar, but my Bigfoot didn't have a cone head. And I said, really? He goes, yeah. And so knowing that he's a truthful man as he was, and sure enough, it wasn't too long after that, I'm down at where we call ground zero. I'm there, and all of a sudden one pokes that head up from out of a brush top looking at me, just as round a head as they, almost like what you see in the Freeman video. If y'all have seen the video of the Freeman video. And so everybody, oh, that Paul Freeman, that's not a Bigfoot. He doesn't have a cone head. Wrong, folks, because not all Bigfoot look alike. They don't all have the same. Go ahead, bud.
My first sighting was my first sighting in daylight was he was solid black and he had a round head.
Right.
Now my second Bigfoot, I didn't see the head, but he had the strangest damn coat. He was colored like Krista's cat.
Yeah.
That gray and white calico color. And he was fluffy like a cat.
Yeah.
You know, like wispy hair, you know, and I'm like, what in the hell am I seeing? But he was hugging a tree. He had his head on the opposite side of the tree, but he was hugging a tree trying to disappear. I honestly think that maybe not all of them, but some of them have that. I think they have that toddler attitude where if I can't see you, you can't see me.
Sure, man. We did it as kids. What happened when we heard the noise in our bedroom? Head underneath the cover and everything was okay.
I still subscribe to that theory.
Oh yeah, man. You know, it's funny. As all the years that I have bass fished there, and like I said, these creatures, animals, creatures, beings. When I was bass fishing and they run into the weeds and they get their eyes covered, they stop fighting. They totally stop fighting because they think they're safe then. And then the same way, you know, like you're talking about with Bigfoot, I've got, golly, 10 to 15 pictures of Bigfoot there, and they're leaning out behind the tree looking at you. Then when they duck back, I played that with the one that I did on the Travel Channel. I showed y'all that picture. She's a mama. She's got the baby on her chest. She'd lean out. About the time I'd lean out, she'd lean back. And I knew she was there because and she was trying to protect her baby, I think, you know, so she would lean back. But then she got kind of irritated with me there, and I was getting the pine cones at first. Then I was getting sticks. I got a rock or two that was left, and then I started getting the little growl or the little huff like that. And when she got that way, I'm like, there's some reason making her act this way. I better just bow on out right here. So, but I was going to get her picture. And I mean, we played, you know, like whack-a-mole, head up, head down, head up, head down for a good 5 minutes. Well, finally, I just turned around to walk away, but I had my camera already in my hand. I put it up over my right shoulder. And as I'm walking away, I just did the click right there. Didn't stop to look around, see if she was there. Just did it. It was my sister's birthday, and I forgot I had that thing on there. 3 days later, I'm like, you idiot. You've got a daggum possible picture of Bigfoot and you ain't even looked at it. Sure enough, I pop it up and there's the mama leaning out behind the tree, and right there in the middle of her chest, you can see the face of that baby Bigfoot. So,
you know, every time we do, that's why I love doing this so much, because I never even thought about this, Will, since 2018. Never crossed my mind. Never thought about it. As y'all know, I had an encounter in 2018. Most of you have seen the rendition that Sibylla did for me. And, you know, excuse me, you know, Will, Tex, Brandy, everyone listening, my rendition, what I saw, you guys, that thing did not have the conical head either.
Nope. You know, and that blew my mind because, you know, in my book there, I described most of the ones I had seen as having the conical heads, you know. And that mama there, she had the conical head. Me and Stephen got a picture of a mama with a baby walking by. She tends to be what we call a hank, or one that has a round head. But on her left shoulder, as she's walking away, you've got a little cone-headed baby right there. It's just starting to develop that cone head. I've got one 3 feet, probably 3 feet from my camera, staring right into my camera, and he's got the little cone head going and everything else going. The eyes are just as big and bright as what they can be. So they are, man. And you're like, gosh, man, I've got a lot to learn here, and rather than the Bigfoot all being the same, all being the same color, all being the same size, there's 3-toed footprints, 4-toed footprints, there's 5-toed footprints. I've actually got one footprint, a picture of one that's actually a 6-toed big footprint. I don't know if that's probably just an anomaly, like what, some people have there. But so when we start sitting there and trying to just perfectly classify that, say, oh, well, it can't be because all the descriptions aren't matching. Will and Tex and Brandy and Rob are all lying. No, we're not. That tends to, I think, lend veracity to the fact that what we're saying. When you see somebody that has like the cutout Bigfoot footprints, when they're trying to fake you out, they're all the same. You hear somebody telling all the same. Well, that's when you need to be, you need to be a little bit suspicious because nature is a funny thing, and how many of us look exactly alike? Some of us, everybody say we have a twin. We may all have that twin, but we're not exactly alike. And the Bigfoot are that way. And well, when I actually accepted that, that they're not all black, then so I started looking for those brown tufts of hair that were behind the tree right there, and all of a sudden, hey, look at this over here underneath this tree, perfectly brown, like the rust color, the pine cone color. And then the baby, after me and Daniel got that picture a couple of years ago there, we didn't go 3 minutes. We crossed a crossroad, and there's a big brown female that's crossing the field right there. And so we stopped. And when I did, man, I thought, man, I'm fixing to get my very first video of Bigfoot. Well, she stopped, and we did a little 10-minute stare down there. And I had somewhere else to be there. And I told Daniel, I said, Daniel, I'm gonna have to just go ahead and take this picture right here. I said, I see something moving there to the waistline. I don't know if she's waving or whether she's getting ready to attack. If that's some kind of movement or scare movement for her. Go in there and take that picture, get back to the house, blow it up, and she's got a baby there, right there on her waistline. And I think I showed that to you. You see the big, beautiful brown coat. I showed you the face. You see that long type nose, the only one I've ever seen that I actually think that, this looks like it may have some human characteristics to it. And then had that baby there, right there on her chest, the same way, So really, really cool. And again, I had my eyes opened right there. Don't ever think you know everything about them, because you don't.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. I was just thinking, you had made mention blonde hair, white, black, brown, red and brown, a multitude of colors. It's just, and a lot of people, I think, are pigeonholed into thinking Bigfoot's like brown or black, blah, blah, blah. But thinking back on all that, I don't know if saying that there's a multitude of different species, but certainly with all these different colors, there's different breeds, just like human beings, right? Yeah. Brandy's got blonde hair. Tex has got, Tex had brown hair.
Once upon a time.
I don't recall.
Leave it so I can find it. So
I don't recall what color my hair was.
I have blonde hair now.
I don't recall the color of my hair back in the day. I think it was brown, light brown. But Will, with all these different colors, it leads me to believe that there's many, many different types out there.
I believe that. I think there's more than what people even want to say or want to acknowledge. We don't know yet, and I certainly hope that we do eventually know, because Gugway could be a part of Bigfoot. They classify it as a class, whatever it is, 3 or 4 there, something like that, and then the Janoska one, all those things. So I think that there's, like you, I think there's probably more kinds than what we realize.
Yeah, I would assume that you'd probably run across eventually one that has who might be an albino. Because they do come in so many different colors, I'm assuming that they would suffer the same genetic problems that we do.
Exactly. These white ones I've got so far, I haven't seen pink eyes, as a sign of albinism, but they've got the solid white fur. And I'm like you, I believe there's got to be albinos out there. There is in the human race, there is in rabbits, there is in calves, there is in goats, there is even in a deer. They had a picture down here I think about 2018 of an albino deer that a person had killed that was, and it was I won't say it was a doe, but it was an albino doe deer. And,
Right.
I mean, unreal, something like that. So,
Well,
I'm like,
even the great apes have albinoism.
yeah,
So-
exactly right. They do. And so with that right there, we can't say for sure. That's why I want to find out more. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't want to put them in cages for sure. I would love to have some kind of space out there like they do, where you have a drive-through or something like that, and they're there, and you get to observe them that way, because that's going to benefit all of us. I think it's certainly going to benefit them when we get some people realizing, hey, I said they are family oriented amongst their own troop. The mamas I told you I was seeing that were sitting there with the babies, man, they were just as cool with me and Daniel and with me and my son Reese as anything you've ever seen in your life. I mean, they were not upset. And I had that 45-70 gun in my hand with Daniel. And do I think they can smell gunpowder? Yeah, maybe they can, but I know this much. I know that my aura that I give off, knowing I'm not going to hurt them, I think tends to disarm them, because they've never hurt me. The last picture we got was a couple months ago, and Daniel had gotten it there. I'm when he and I go out, I generally carry the gun because I'm more experienced with guns and stuff like that, especially with my own 45-70, which is what it's going to take to kill a bear. We've got bears where we are, and I don't want him to be a statistic or myself or a hog, but on that right there. But I'm more familiar with the guns, and therefore Daniel, boy, he's got a great camera on his phone. He's very, very patient. Boy, he's scrutinizing of the area that we're in. I'm kind of used to it, and familiarity breeds contempt. I'm like, well, I looked at this before, but man, he's sitting there steadily looking through there, and all of a sudden we've got a picture of another Bigfoot in there, and there's 3 or 4 actually in these woods, and I'm probably 20 foot from the wood line. I've got, again, a 45-70 in my hand, and this Bigfoot's just sitting there staring at me. He didn't growl at me. He didn't charge me, nothing else like that. And no, do I think that he was afraid of the gun? No, I don't. I don't think they're afraid of guns. They don't like light, but being a gun, I don't think it makes any difference at all. And that's based on those. I'm not something I'm guessing. I'm telling you, that's experience I've had. I've been there with these things with a rifle that's capable. If there's any rifle or that's capable of, I have one in that 45-70. I actually had one come up behind me one day when I was in my deer stand and actually start shaking a tree. Now, that's probably one of the scariest I've ever been. I was up there. I was about 15 feet up in the air, and I started smelling him before I ever saw him. I thought, oh, crap. This is not going to be good. Am I going to be able to get away from here? Is he going to come up underneath my stand and just crumple me with all the metal in there too? But he didn't. But he got behind me and started shaking that tree. And man, he was going in 4 and 5 foot sways, and I'm sitting there peering back over my shoulder not to look at him. A lot of times when you look at animals, that's a sign of, hey, I'm challenging you. So I'm trying to look over my shoulder to see where he's at and see what he's doing. Finally, after about 10 minutes, man, it just stops, and I hear it stop. I look back over there, actually make eye contact with him. He walks back up the hill, and I don't see him again. Well, he didn't see me again either, because once I got to where I could come out of there, I got back in the truck for a while till I could kind of recuperate my senses to me as far as that goes. But amazing sighting that I never thought something like that I would have.
Brandy makes a great point, Will, and then you followed up with a great point. And we're not going to sit here and talk theory what we think Bigfoot is, but if we revert back to what I saw, it looked like a human, right? I mean, the original part of my Bigfoot looked like a person with a disfigured person with a human trait of a stroke.
Yeah.
Down syndrome, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Now, we're not going to get into what it transformed into. That's a whole different subject. But even now, you talk about the hunters. How many stories have you heard, Will? We've all heard them about the hunter lined up, saw a Bigfoot, and he was going to shoot it, but he could not pull the trigger because when he got an up-close look at it through his scope, it looked too human.
I have talked to probably 6 or 7 people with that very same story. And some of them on purpose, and some of them the story just came out because they wanted to unburden themselves, because it's like a support group. When you finally get to tell somebody about it, somebody that is going to believe you, you're like, oh man, the weight of the world's off my shoulders several times. And they said, man, it was there. I was sitting there, just one guy was just glassing across a gas line there. He had no, or a high line, whatever you want to call it. He had no idea there was a Bigfoot there. And he had a new scope. So he's sitting there and he's glassing over there on each side. And all of a sudden he stops and he goes back and he looks, and there's a Bigfoot standing there looking at him from right behind the tree. He goes, man, he said, I was so scared I would have shot. But the same thing you said, he said, there was enough characteristics that appeared to be human. He said, I just couldn't be sure that I wasn't looking. You know, when people get in the woods like that, or they, you know, we're not going to say go crazy and disparage them, but when people get in there and they get in the woods, all of a sudden they kind of revert back. You know, their hair starts going on a little bit. They're disheveled.
Sure.
They're dirty. Their hair tends to grow, and then all of a sudden you shoot somebody like that right there. So I've talked to, like I said, at least 6 people that have had that same thing. One guy had 3 of them in front of him, and he said, man, he said all 3 of them. He said they had to be family because they all looked alike. He said, but they were, you know, he said they didn't look like monkeys. They looked more like people.
Yeah, you know, I hear you, because it seems weird to say. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to get into what I think, but like you said, you're not going to put Bigfoot in a cage. I don't think Bigfoot should go in a cage, because an ape could go in a cage. But when I think about Bigfoot, man, that seems inhumane. And I'm not making Bigfoot out to be a human being, right? But to me, it's like, yeah, no, it should not be in a cage. And that's just my thoughts, right? After doing this for a while, it just seems odd to me to think that way, because I don't really think it's an animal.
You know, and you may be right. You know, we may all be wrong. We may all be partially right as far as that goes, until we can get some that we can. That would be the only reason I'm like you, that I would want to even have them in a quote enclosure, whether it was male or just to study them, just to learn a little bit more about them. You know, but I guarantee you, like I said, with what I have actually seen, these things, they tend to move in either family units, or their troop is adopted into them, so that, man, hey, they're quote kinfolk, unquote, as far as that goes. And that's not me guessing, folks. Like I said, I've seen it. And that's when you see that, you're like, oh my gosh, these things are incredible. Because you know, they could have all charged me, you know, like that chimpanzee did, or whoever it was up there years and years ago, that tore that lady's face up, you know, and like the stories that we had talked about a while ago about somebody, you know, when an ape tends to kill somebody, they'll tend to eat the lips and the throat out. You know, when you get something like a coyote, they tend to eat out the rear end region, you know, in those regions like that. And then doggone cats will end up cutting through, biting you in the throat until it breaks your neck, and then biting. So they've all got their different, you know, methods of killing. But boy, I'll tell you what, these things here, the looks that they give you sometimes are just so, and this sounds silly, but so understanding, like, you know, you're very similar to what I am, you know, and that is really cool. And since Stephen Hill will tell you the same thing. He ain't never told a lie in his life, and he'll tell you the same thing. He's like, man, these things just, the way they look at you, it's just different in their amount of understanding. And I'm like you, that's why I wouldn't want to put them in a cage. You know, people say that deal from Oklahoma a couple years ago, we got a big $1 million bounty, you know, for anybody to catch one. Number one, you ain't got material that's gonna hold him, you know, unless you shoot him, and then whenever he comes back alive, he's gonna have some buddies with him that's gonna have something to say about that as well. You know, when he comes back to being not asleep, or where you want to call that.
Yeah. I think, like you said earlier, they're socialized. They have troops. Where there's one, there's definitely a couple others watching the one you might see.
That's the truth. The most I've seen at one time was 7 at the same time, and I've seen 5 together out there. And that's not me pulling your leg, folks. That's the truth. I've sent y'all a picture of one of them that we had there, and the 7 group right there, and 3 of them standing there looking at you. And Stephen was on his log truck one day, and there was a whole big troop come through. He said, man, I'm looking at a bare green hill. He said, all of a sudden these black heads start popping up over there, and there may be, you know, could have been 10 or 12 over there. But I know he's telling the truth, because he took the time of day to send them to me from right there. I mean, he got the pictures and he sent them to me. You know, he owns his own business. Any time down is time money not made. But he took the time to send them to me. Man, I called him back, and he goes, this is incredible, man. So he got that picture of the troops coming through there. So again, really, really amazing to when you get out there, and anybody that has that mindset of, well, we need to kill one, in order to prove something. Well, there's some things that just, that you just don't, if that's the case, you just don't need to know it. And I'm not saying if he goes to kill you, or hurt you or your family. But I'm saying other than that, just to kill one, just for the heck of it, I don't think science needs it. I don't trust science anyway. Science is, in my opinion, is full of a bunch of bull, and because they don't acknowledge things that we definitely know, that we know exist. Things they're not going to tell me what I've seen with my own eyes does not exist, but they're going to sit there and ridicule me about it. Science it doesn't acknowledge God. Well, man, I don't know anything. There's not a house in my neighborhood that just sprung up by itself. Every house has a builder, and I'm not sitting there trying to preach to anybody. I'm just saying there's cause and effect that we need to look at as reasonable souls and see that. And that's what that's one thing that Bigfoot has done, man. It's opened up a whole world for me there to realize there's things out there that as smart as I thought I was at 17, I didn't know squat.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I was still an expert. Like I wish I still knew it all. I forgot everything. The older you get, you forget everything.
Yeah, there's a song, I think it's by the Birds, that said, "I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now." Well, exactly right. I'm not the genius I was back then, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And I've learned, so much that way. But thing is, but I'm glad to share it, and I know y'all are too, because like I said, this is not about an ego trip for me, man. I'm sitting here, and I could be watching, something on TV. I could be messing with my dogs on something like that. It's not for me to sit here and just think, "Gee, guys, I'm the greatest hunter. I've seen these things." They've had more to do with it than I have. Have I researched? Yes. Have I got the areas? Yes. Have I spent the time in there and boots on the ground? Yes. But the rest of it is the fact that they quote, "let me," unquote, see what they do. And that's just, that's really worth everything in the world. And that's why I want to share with everybody like that. We're finally getting some people like you guys, like I said, like Duke and like Daniel and Stephen, that are wanting to make the knowledge of these things, trying to make it public for everybody. And things like that. You never know when somebody that you're going to listen to is going to be the next person that's going to help you have your first or next sighting. And so that's why it's important to listen to everybody.
What do you think about these people that call themselves researchers, but they think these things are monsters?
They haven't seen one.
I don't understand that.
Well, like I said earlier, things that we don't understand, we tend to classify as monsters, just because, that's just, just the way it is. That's the way we've been socialized or whatever. But anybody that says that has not taken the time. Now, they may have gotten so scared, that they ran, or the things may have turned around. I think we've discussed on y'all's show before, sometimes what Bigfoot does, it seems like its aggression, what it's doing is actually doing as much as it can to keep there from being an aggressive counter. If it chases you, then it might be, to run you away so that things don't, escalate to that point. Right. And man, I've had them stomp at me. I've had them huff. They'll knock on trees, not just with sticks, but man, they'll pick up logs and kind of twist their mid part of their body and bang other trees there together to make the noise. And you can hear it. It's not just like that, but it's a thump, whenever it hits like that. So again, they do that to keep from any encounter that you may be having from turning into that violent encounter. Man, I appreciate that, because man, you're not going to outrun them. There was 2 kids down here about 4 years ago, and they were out coon hunting late at night, and they heard something over there. They actually heard the quote gibberish. So they went over to see what it was. Well, sure enough, there was a female over there, right there, kind of hunkered down beside a log. And so that was enough to scare them. They took off running. The next thing they hear is boom, 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 boom. They turn around. Here comes Cat Daddy chasing them around. He could have caught them. They told this to this friend of mine who I got the story from. He said they said that thing could have caught him anytime they wanted to. So all I was doing was just doing what it took just to get them out of there, So right. So boy, I'm glad of that, because it's like a Volkswagen and a diesel. The daggum diesel don't lose too many, And so that's pretty darn cool. And I appreciate, I've had some aggressive encounters with some other animals, and buddy, they were bound determined they were going to, if that gun, sometimes that warning shot fired towards them, it kind of made things more balanced. Bigfoot, I haven't had to do that. I haven't had to fire a warning shot. at all. And I pulled my gun on the one that night that got up there. I told y'all about my wife and my son. And it comes through there, and I pulled the gun out, and I would have fired a warning shot first before I would have shot at it. But other than that, right there, I mean, even it took off, and it had another Bigfoot with him. That's the story that I previewed there on Travel Channel, and it had one with him. So whenever this one took off running back towards Sulphur River, here's this other one. Well, like I said, he didn't offer to hurt. I didn't even know he was there, but he didn't offer to try to hurt me. So or my family. So. Strange encounters, strange beings, strange universe. But man, I'm so glad, that we have things that we still haven't discovered yet. I wanted to be discovered. Go ahead.
Speaking about discovering, science has its own agenda. The government, hell, these TV shows have an agenda. Researchers have an agenda.
Yes, sir.
So I got to ask you, I think that you probably believe, and I believe this, whether it's the government or some black ops operation, I'm sure that we have captured and or killed one and have studied it though somewhere. I gotta believe that's probably. I believe that's happened.
I would point back to Mount St. Helens then when Mount St. Helens erupted, and there were people there, eyewitness people there, part of the military, talking about the things running down off the hills and then picking them up with nets or sitting there covering them up with raincoats so that they couldn't be seen what they're doing, and actually taking these things off and treated. Yes, I believe we have them, that the government has them as far as that goes. They're not going to tell us the truth. Government doesn't tell us the truth. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm just telling you, the government does. We get told the inconvenient truth, like, and that's all they want us to know. Well, man, I might have been born in the morning, but I wasn't born this morning. I can go out there and find footprint tracks and realize there's something there that made these tracks, and it's not a human being, because some of the tracks I've got are 22 inches long, 11 inches wide. I had a friend that played football at Nashville, Arkansas, that wore a size 24 shoe. Well, even as big as what his foot was not as big as this 22-inch track, which, the shoe sizes are not based on inches, but it was not as big as this track that I had found there. And I've got one there that's got a tape measure beside it. Found one up there at ground zero, and found one down there at Sulphur River, both of them 22 inches. And like I said, 11 and a half inches wide. You're like, oh my gosh, they don't make sandals for that feat. Couldn't make Roman sandals where you tie them around with little leather shoestrings. So it's amazing with those things.
I concur. I agree.
That's okay. Go ahead.
I was on my phone responding to somebody in the chat, but yeah,
He's like, I had to take a breath.
yeah,
the bad thing with y'all is I've had kind of a laryngitis kind of deal here the last couple of weeks, so I haven't gotten to talk much. So, man, y'all just happen to be the unfortunate ones that I'm the first one on your show. So
it's time to get it all out, right?
This is what I say, man. When I tell everybody, during the podcast world, I tell Brandy, Tex, Krista, whoever, if I'm doing, or Brandy or Krista or Tex is doing 75% of the talking, it's a bad show.
You're right.
Because you're on for a reason to expand on your knowledge, what you know or don't know, for that matter.
Sure.
Your experiences. That's why we have guests.
Man, and what I hope what everybody knows about me, y'all have seen me enough times. Guys, I'm not lying to you. Got no reason to lie to you.
Right.
Like I said, I'm not making money off of this stuff. I'm not monetized. I don't have a Facebook account. I have people I give, say, hey, if you want to get in touch with me, then catch me on Facebook Messenger, call me, and we'll talk. Like I said, I don't, I'm not even making any money off my book as far as that goes, but I really wouldn't care, because it's that labor of love that's telling people, hey, these things are here. And with the pictures that are in there, same way with you. It's not just we do this because we didn't have nothing better to do. I want people to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Bigfoot is out there. And I don't care what our government says. I've had them pulling my leg. I had it one time where I sit there and I saw a black panther. I happened to see the game warden about 3 miles after that. And I pulled in there and said, boy, you just the man I want to see. I actually knew him, delivered to him. And I said, you're just the man I want to see. I just got through seeing a black panther. Oh, well, you didn't see no black panther. I said, well, man, I guess I did. you know. And I said, I saw him at probably 25 or 30 yards and saw him when he was fixing to cross the road beforehand. You didn't see no Black Panther. I said, well, I tell you what, I carry a pistol with me. Next time I see one, I'm going to stop and shoot him, and I'm going to come fold him up on your doorstep. I said, what do you think about that? He goes, I'm going to arrest you when you do. I said, wait a minute. How are you going to arrest me for killing something that doesn't exist? And he told me, and I had to read between the lines. He wasn't being a smart aleck. He was just saying, because I'm the law. That's why. There's laws that, you know, there's a letter of the law and an intent of the law. And whatever it was, it just, you know, it's meant, you know, in Texas here and in Arkansas, if there's not a season in them, then you're not supposed to kill them, even with a snake, you know. But on something like that, like, you know, rattlesnakes to do. But still, if you're not supposed to have that right there. But he did not. It wasn't that he didn't believe, because he knew I was telling the truth. So many people have seen creatures, like I said, like the Black Panther and things like that. Yep. And seen the blind mountain lions. We got a bunch of blind ones around here around Texarkana, and they've seen the thing and they tell the truth. And two, what it does, it upsets people's apple cart. Then two, if they find a new species, the government has to quarantine X amount of the land so that they can have space. We've all read that story. Y'all remember, again, like you read my book there about the Tellico Mountain Dam, when they found the snail darter, had already spent so many millions of dollars, and they just stopped for production of it, you know. But don't sit there for our government and have something that can actually hurt you, like this Gugway, and tell people that they don't exist. Because when somebody dies, that's on your hands right there. And that's another reason I tell the truth of what I do. You know, we got a good chance. Daniel was with me. We got a chance to go down and talk to a man who killed a Bigfoot this year. Killed a Bigfoot back there in March. But there were two of them, and they were trying to kill him. And I don't know whether
that's a different story there. If anything is trying to kill me, my friends, my family, I mean, you're going to take the appropriate action.
That's exactly right. You know, we got to see he actually had shot the thing. They were playing leapfrog to see who was going to get the kill, I guess. And finally he shot, and when he did, shot it through the face and the jaw and the eye socket there, and actually got two of the teeth there. I saw the picture of the teeth, and we interviewed the man right there, and the amount of fear that was in his voice when we were interviewing him was just so real with what he was, because I felt the same thing, and you did too, Rob, I'm sure, and you did too, Tex, when you saw yours, and you too, Brandy. Yeah, the fear was so real. The fear is when you say you can cut it with a knife, you really can. It just encompasses you. And this guy was telling us the truth, and he said, man, the thing was trying to kill me, and he had a partner, and it could have been Gugway, you know, but nevertheless, he shot the thing, got the teeth, sent one of the teeth to a scientist, one of our great scientists, like I said, with science. He hadn't heard a thing in the world back, you know. He's even
not going to.
Oh yeah. He even called him back. Said, man, did you get this tooth? He said, no, I never got this.
Yeah,
sure.
Mail.
He sent it registered mail. You know, he's got the receipt, you know, for where it was. And well, somebody just, you know, must have signed it and it got lost, or it accidentally fell into the trash can while they had them stacked up there. Mm-hmm. So but we know that's not true. You know, but that's the first time I've talked to anybody that said they've actually killed one. But man, I mean, when I knew go ahead, guys. Yeah, don't let me interrupt to monopolize.
No, I was just going to ask what he did with the body.
Well, what he did right there, he said the thing was down on the ground, and he said it was kicking and stirring up dust, and said the other one sat there and watched him for a while. Then he took off, and then he decided it was best for him to leave. He came back the next day with his buddy, and the body had been, he said, drug off, but that's where they found the teeth. Right there. Right. Now we've heard the stories there. People who've said that Bigfoot, you know, do they bury their dead? Not sure, but that's pretty. You know, they're human-like, like y'all said earlier, human-like in a lot of ways. You know, maybe so they do, but when they do something other like that right there, the body had been drug off. The guys from killing Bigfoot, one of their people actually killed a Bigfoot that was harassing their home and stuff, scaring the kids during their wildlife. And it said whenever they went to go get the tractor to move it, so whenever it did, so there were two more dragging it back off into the woods, you know, and that's how
we've talked about that. Yeah, we've talked about that. Exactly. What are they doing? Yeah. You know, as they get older and pass away. I mean, what are they doing with these? Why are we not finding bones? Why are we not finding any remnants of them?
We all know that whenever an animal gets sick in nature and it feels like it's going to die, it's going to go to the deepest, darkest, most secluded spot it can to die in peace, because if not, predators are going to find him when he's dying and he's not able to fight his way back to. And I think just to avoid pain's sake, to keep from being eaten alive. I don't want to get eaten alive. That's a natural fact, man. I've nearly drowned before. I used to tell people I was bass fishing. If I died drowned fishing, I died happy. Let me tell you what, that's the biggest lie I ever told. And I got run over by my own boat, was getting drug out to deep water, and I was scared to death, tears flowing from my face. And it's the same way with that right there, So,
well, there's that story that I've got where this old boy gut shot one on the Red River. He gut shot one with a 30-30, and two more rushed it from the brush, and one hit it high, one hit it low, broke its neck, and they tore it apart and ate it right there.
Yeah. I mean, that may be their way of disposing. That may be their way of keeping from being discovered. I mean, we don't know that.
Well, the thing, if you think about it, there's other animals that eat their dead, of course.
Sure.
But there's also, cats. Hell, they'll eat anything. You died in your house and you're alone with cats, you're going to be munched on.
That's right.
Plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
A dog will lay there and die next to you, but a cat will eat you.
Yep.
Right.
But even if you look back on, relic hominids and prehistoric times, and not only that, lost tribes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They ate their dead because
Yes.
that was their way of keeping them with them.
That's right.
Yeah. Or consuming their knowledge. There's the other.
Exactly. Their spirit,
Mm-hmm.
their knowledge. It was
Mm-hmm.
their way of, and when they cannibalized a warrior, it was their way of absorbing that warrior's spirit.
Strength. Yeah, their strength. Yeah.
So, but just people, passing away in their own tribe, they would share the body amongst the tribe because that was their way of keeping them with them. Much like we talk about when somebody dies, that they're right here. That's to keeping their memory alive, keeping
That's
them
right.
with them. So it's not a stretch at all to think these things eat their dead.
Like Native Americans.
And it's not a savage thing.
No.
It's a religious thing, if
That's
anything.
right. When we see the Native Americans sometime wearing those wolf skins or something like that whenever they're when they're hunting to try to absorb the cunning of the wolf or things like that. You see tigers eating their young, and then the other animals, if they have a female that's not in season or hasn't been in season and she has cubs, she'll protect those cubs or babies forever, so they'll eat those young too, so that she'll come back in season so that they can breed. Their animals have a way that the good Lord gave them that we don't understand. It doesn't necessarily apply to us as people, but still, you're right. They will. It may be something just as natural to them as what it can be.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Will, people ask me a lot, how. What I think the intelligence level of these creatures are, and I've
Orca.
I'm on a broken record, and it's
Orca.
beat this dead horse, but I consider them as right up there with killer whales. And people that argue with me that, well, they're smarter than killer whales. Well, are they? Because if you look at what killer whales are capable of,
Oh God.
they grieve, they hold funerals, they teach.
Yep.
They're strategic. They're family oriented. They mate for life. They will coordinate attacks.
Yep.
We've got video of it.
That's exactly right. Their communication skills,
Exactly.
Oh gosh, and they, for miles, those things that they do are audible for miles to other, and all of a sudden here's you a whole pod of orcas, So again, we don't know. That's what I want to know. I think that's going to be the coolest thing in the world. I hope it happens during my lifetime for Bigfoot. But again, the infrasound they have, elephants have infrasound, that they receive their infrasound through their feet. What better animal than Bigfoot with them great old big feet to receive his infrasound the same way? If that's how it happens, may not happen that way at all.
Right.
But that's just strictly just something that would make a whole lot of sense. So they do. They have ways of communicating that like I said that we don't have tree knocks. I'm sure the tree knocks means something to them. We've all heard tree knocks, man. That's it's like I joke with people say, man, it sound like the drummer from Metallica, but we don't understand it, but they do. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and when I first got into this game, I'd go out there and hit a tree every once in a while. I wasn't real big on it, but and a few times I've been out there and I've done a few calls,
Right.
but I quit doing it because you don't know what you're saying.
Oh,
Yeah.
shoot.
You might be asking one on a date, and you might be sorry that you got it.
That's exactly.
Yes.
That's true.
That night, that one guy from me and Cindy and Reese, he was flanking us around trying to get a closer look, I'm sure. And I think he was Twitter pated with Cindy during that time right there, being in April there with Easter Sunday 2014. But as he's trying to sneak in, all of a sudden I decided, well, this will be a good idea. Whoop, whoop. And whenever I did, the whole dynamic changed, because here he comes on a dead run. And in hindsight, when I finally get in the truck with my wife, she goes, just what made you think that was a good idea? And y'all know my wife. She meant it. The Bigfoot may have been bluff charging. She wasn't bluff charging, buddy. And I said, because you've been saying that you wanted to see one. Me and Reese have been on this particular Bigfoot for about 6 months. We could go down there and holler him up. We could call. He would call back. He would come around. He would flank around us there and everything, And I mean, it was just plain as nose on your face. But that night right there, like I said, for whatever it was, it just didn't. But I did, just like you said, I did that call, and either I said, come and get it, or I'm fixing to whip your butt, or you better leave these woods and leave me alone. He said, well, big boy, he said, let's say you're 6'2" and about 265. He said, I'm 9 foot and about 780. Let's see who's going to win this fight. And It was not cool. I didn't know. I knew how the fight was going to end up. I also knew who was going to be in it. And that was kind of and I just want to make sure my family got away at that time. But thank goodness when that spotlight hit that booger, and man, like I said, he threw that arm over his face and just turned and hit the ground, ran about 3 or 4 strides there on all fours, and then stood up and went crashing through the woods like an elephant driving a bulldozer. That's the only way I can say it and give it any kind of justice. And there he was. And then he went and jumped up in a tree, got in front of my son. And finally he jumps down. Then again, he takes off, and then the other one there with him, whoop, 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 and all that stuff. And then Cindy goes, I think I told you all this story. She goes, and my son's fixing to be a dentist, and there ain't gonna be another doctor come from my loins, man. That was just a crapshoot that happened for real. And so we get up there, and she says, if you guys hear this truck start, you better jump in the back because I'm gone. Now, like I said, this is my only son, her only child. And I said, you mean you're going to leave your husband and only son out here with a rogue Bigfoot? And she goes, I'll have more kids. You better listen to me. Didn't mention old hubby here who's fixing to fight the Bigfoot for you, honey. No. We had a big joke out of that, but it was really funny because y'all know my wife, and she was scared to death, and she ain't scared of nothing, man. So it was really quite humorous, but it was a deal, just like you said. You don't know what you're saying, and whatever it was that I said.
Right, because I could definitely see her. I could definitely see her going, well, it's a sad story about what happened to William.
Yeah. He goes, I had to give that Bigfoot 2 bunches of bananas before he finally agreed to rip his head right off his shoulder for taking me down there and scaring me to death,
I know we're getting kind of close to the end, I guess. I think you guys go 90. But I did have to ask you, Will, and I've never really asked you this before. It's kind of a different question.
Yeah.
But earlier today, you had made mention it's too bad that all the hoaxes that are out there that are being performed, which turns people off that might have been interested in Bigfoot, right?
Right.
And we all know as Americans, we are geniuses when it comes to marketing, hence our beef jerky commercials.
That's
with
right.
Bigfoot, which for me today, I kind of cringe at. But I will say this, because I know you have some background or about the television side of it and the production side of it.
Yep.
Now, I will say this and go on record and say this. I'm not going to slam anything that's on TV. I will watch Finding Bigfoot. I will watch Expedition Bigfoot. I'll watch those other yahoos that make these great traps to catch all these beasts. I find it entertaining. I'll watch it. Now, my thing is, you think, though, it's the big joke about finding Bigfoot is like never finding Bigfoot. And an expedition Bigfoot or Bigfoot expedition Bigfoot it is. Yeah, they're not really there. They're in a hotel a mile away. And there's like when they make these shows, there's 50 people production. There's a team of 50 people there in the woods.
That's
You're
right.
not going to find nothing. We all know that.
And they've got a diesel down there. They've got a diesel truck down there unloading all that stuff.
Oh yeah, and it's roaring, and it's blowing all the fumes. Oh, that's another story into the forest. I like those shows. I don't criticize them. I don't condemn them. Frankly, like I said, I will watch them. But do you think though it hurts when you're trying to get somebody on with this genre, this subject? Do you think it hurts more people because of these shows, or because people view it as just make believe entertainment?
Oh man, I tell you what, I think it really hurts us, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Not every one of them, because not all of them go to the same extent. But I know that a lot of the quote researchers that we have there don't spend any time out in the woods. They sit there behind the computer, listen to other people. I've actually had some of them people tell me, well, I know Bigfoot only has fingers 5 inches long. Wrong, because I've seen several. First thing I ever saw of a Bigfoot was his hands reaching up there. Those fingers can be 7 to 10 inches long easily. But he sat there and said that. And then he said, well, anybody that says they've seen a Bigfoot over 7 foot tall or has a footprint over 16 inches said they're hoaxers. That ain't so either. And I guarantee you that's not so, because I've got pictures of them. I know other people that's gotten pictures of them. I've actually got a picture of one that a friend of mine, Michael, has there. He's got 5 of them that are in the mouth of a cave. And so they're sitting there, and Michael's got a girl with him. So Michael, being a ladies' man and single, I'm sure he's probably trying to impress her more than he is a Bigfoot. But you look over in the mouth of this cave, and sure enough, there's 5 Bigfoot. And you can see one of them that's baring his teeth. Y'all seen the picture of the one I've got that's got his teeth right there that you can see biting my camera. You can see another one with his hand that's stuck up outside the brush that he had pulled into the mouth of this cave. You see almost a brand new newborn there with no hair on his body whatsoever. And then you see a couple more there. You can actually see the faces. There's some that's not the nose like what we have, but almost like a muzzle right there. So you've got all those, right there, like that right there. So it's but they sit there and they want to say, well, that didn't happen. That's not so, man. And a lot of them are sitting there saying, well, this is this right here, the biggest Bigfoot hunt ever in history is about to take over. We've got an algorithm. An algorithm's what got Joe Biden elected. I mean, I don't want to be ugly, but that's just the honest truth. They get these politicians there and they get what they want, and big money tells them what to do with it. And so therefore that's what they do. But I think it really hurts because they're sitting there disparaging guys who really get out in the woods, who see a whole lot, and just because they don't see it the same way, or it doesn't read the same way in some of the Bigfoot novels that they're reading. And that's not so. And I'm not being ugly. I don't publicly disparage by name any other Bigfoot researchers, if they're a legitimate researcher. And that's but when you sit there and dream up all this stuff and then start telling other people they're wrong and start disparaging stories, now and I'm not going to call them liars. I'm just going to call them storytellers, because they don't know what they're talking about. When you start seeing these things for real, I think y'all have interviewed my friend Stephen Hill. You've interviewed Daniel, you've interviewed Duke, you've interviewed so many other people that have actually had sightings. Again, that's what, like I said about this deal here at the Louisiana Bigfoot Conference this year. All 5 speakers had Bigfoot sightings, and so they were able to speak from a firsthand account. And man, that worked out. So many people were appreciative of that, because it's, well, I don't think, I had one here not too long ago. Well, if Bigfoot exists, then this and this and this. And if Bigfoot exists, well, man, when you're sitting there talking about if Bigfoot exists, y'all, they need to just go to another program. They don't need to be on y'all's podcast for sure, because it's not a deal of if Bigfoot exists. Bigfoot does exist. It's just the way it is. And, you'd think people by now would have be willing to take somebody's word for, or take this. People have DNA, they have scat, they have hair, they've got pictures. Now, some of the pictures are good, some of them aren't. But you got people whose lives have been changed, that'll sit there when they're telling you about it, and they'll start crying up a storm. You're talking about big men that'll whoop me and Tex and Rob all together at the same time, that have seen Bigfoot, and like I said, tears running down their eyes, and they're sitting there with their nerves. You realize something's happened in their life that's they want to tell you about. They want to get that relief that you get from actually telling the story. Because I did once I finally got to where I could talk about it. Because other than that right there, man, that was just killing me. Yeah. And I couldn't tell anybody without a mind. Oh yeah, well, where'd you see that? Well, oh yeah, that's the same place I saw the Easter Bunny last year. Or that's not a Bigfoot. That's your high school girlfriend. And all this kind of junk like that. And being, just or man, I sure wish I had some of what you've been smoking. And we've all heard that.
Yeah.
And I don't mind a good joke, man. I can laugh at myself, man, and I can laugh as hard as anybody. But when they start doing that, trying to disparage you as being a liar just because you've experienced something they haven't done, then man, that's not cool right there. They and then all of a sudden when they see one, they're like, oh gosh, what did Will say whenever there's a Bigfoot chasing you? He said, run. And he hopes that he catches you. No,
right.
I really don't. But still, like I said, I want people to realize that folks like, Rob, the emotion that you have, with your encounter,
Sure.
with shoot, man. I mean, a lot of things happened right there. Tex, Randy, the same way, man. And the thing about a Bigfoot encounter, you don't know how it's going to go. It may be that you can go out and have 100 Bigfoot encounters. That 101st may be totally different,
Yep.
Yeah, they're all different. For the first timer, you're realizing you're coming across something that in your mind is not supposed to exist. So your brain can't process what you're looking at. And even if you had multiple encounters, something that's 9 foot tall, 800, 1,200 pounds, I don't care if you've seen 15. Every time you see one, your mind is trying to process it because it's just it's brute strength and power, and it's just something that you just can't process it. Not fast.
Guys, for instance, the closest thing we can really associate it with, and this is maybe our own finite minds, is most times with a gorilla. Go look at some of these gorilla videos from Africa. They go where a gorilla takes a tree, bends it over the top of his head, snaps the tree, just like that right there. Then you're talking about something that'll take a gorilla, hang him up by his toes, and skin him upside down. I mean, Bigfoot is the alpha. I got to talk to a guy there in Alaska, and he knew of a guy who had been in the river, and he watched a grizzly walk out onto one of the peninsulas right there. The grizzly, they were there doing, I think it was mussels or I think it was clams. They were digging clams. And so he watched the grizzly. They get back on the boat. Then all of a sudden that grizzly stands up, sticks his nose up, and just takes off running, man, like he's been switched by his mama. So all of a sudden here comes Bigfoot walking out there. That grizzly bear knew he didn't have a prayer. And he said that was a big grizzly bear. So it's on something other like that right there. When you hear stories like that, that's the baddest thing walking. I don't care. The only way a bear is going to whoop a Bigfoot is if it's a big bear and a little Bigfoot. Other than that right there, it's just, and then if mama's around, that ain't going to take place, or daddy's around, that's not going to take place. So again, I'm so thankful that we have these things, so thankful for the sightings that I've had, because it's I think, like I said, it's made me to when I realized the appreciation they have for their own families, their own kiddos, the way they associate in a group, it makes me a whole lot more compassionate human being. Now, I'm not no sissy, but that's just the truth. It makes me realize, hey, these things, the way they take care of theirs, why don't I take care of mine the same way?
Exactly.
And
Absolutely.
That's not, I'm not trying to be hokey, folks, but that's the truth. When you see it and you've experienced it, you're like, oh my gosh, these things are so human-like if they're not human. Like when Tex said a while ago, how smart are they? Orcas, they may be even smarter than that. Again, boy, and I appreciate that. Searching for the unfindable, my quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot, folks, these are all true stories. My next book is going to be Searching for the Unfindable, Finding the Impossible, name that was suggested by Duke right there. And what you're going to, the story telling is how all of a sudden me and Stephen looked up upon a place where we can truly expect to have a Bigfoot sighting anytime we're there. And that's the honest truth. And then because we've been associating now with those dudes there for about six years, and they recognize us. I mean, they recognize us. The ones down here at Sulphur River, like I said, that one place I've been down there probably maybe 8 to 10 years, and so with them, and they recognize me. So that's what I'm trying to show to people that the things the same way that bond us together as humans, the same thing that bonds Bigfoot together, and maybe bonds them with us. At least I hope so.
I'm going to pay you a compliment here. I normally detest a guest that comes on and I can't see them in video.
Yeah.
I did not even realize you weren't even on the video because you're just so articulate and tell such great stories. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Well, guys, I appreciate you saying that, Rob. Like I said, man, because y'all have known me now well enough. You've met me in person. Man, you see the same tears that come in my eyes when I tell you these stories. I enjoy visiting with y'all. I enjoy telling the quote stories, but they're not quote stories. They're actually real encounters.
They're encounters. I know. I say stories and encounters. Same thing, everybody.
Oh yeah, people say
story from your encounter. It's your encounter story.
Yeah, they
your
say,
experience.
Hey, man, you're telling your stories. Yeah, you're telling a story. Yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah. But they don't want to accept it. That's fine. But like I said, it's all fun and games till the Bigfoot stands up. Then it's another story.
Every story is true unless you say it's a tall tale. That's the way I view it.
That's right.
Hey, Will, how far are you away from Jefferson?
Jefferson, 60 miles exactly. 60 miles. I went to church there this last weekend. Me and Keith had a deal down at Caddo Lake, so I drove down there to be with Keith, and then I've been there to the Woolheater's Bigfoot conference that he has there down there several times. There's actually there was a man there at church, and I didn't get to meet him because he's in a wheelchair, but he had gotten sick. But he told the people there, I was talking to the preacher there, and when somebody will confess to their preacher, they've seen Bigfoot. That's pretty brave. And the preacher told me, he said, man. He said, what are you down here for? And I introduced myself. I said, we're doing a Bigfoot deal down here at Caddo Lake. Oh, man, I wish Brother So-and-so was here, because he told me that the only reason he moved to Jefferson, Texas was because there's so many Bigfoot around here. And that's the truth. I was there fixing to fish the KYKX Big Bass Tournament, about I think it's $105,000 first prize. I get there at 3 o'clock that morning because 5,000 people are going to fish it. There's some people over there around a campfire. And they were staring at me, and this may or may not end good. Of course, I had a pistol just in case. And I walked over there and I said, you guys sure are up early. And they goes, no, we're not up early. We're up late. And I said, you're up late and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. What's going on? Oh, we've had some things going around our camp, hitting on trees, throwing rocks and stuff into our camp, making all kinds of noises that we've never heard before. And I said, yeah, I've heard that story from around here too. They said, you know what it is? And I said, yeah, I know what it is. But I didn't, They said, yes, and we thought you might, and so, but then I put my boat in the water and I went out there and sit in the middle of Daggum Creek. And then I went to sleep with my lights. So I wasn't going to sit on that bank and wake up and have me a new bass fishing partner. Wasn't going to happen.
I'll be in Jefferson this weekend.
Oh, really? Are you going to be there?
Yeah.
I've got some things going, so I won't be able to. Of course, deer season coming up and things like that.
Hey, Will, speaking of Caddo Lake, me and Tex, we ate like kings for like 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that, Tex? At that place we went to?
Oh, yeah. That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. And that anybody who's never seen it, it's the closest thing that we're going to have to the Everglades in Texas or in Mercer Bayou down there. It's the same thing, the closest thing that we're going to have to the Everglades there in Arkansas. But, man, it's its own environment. And
yes,
boy, it has a mystique and an aura that's it's not really describable till you see it. And then when you do, it puts a lot of these stories that we've been sitting here tonight, it puts them just in the right perspective. And
I can't wait to get back down there again for sure.
I'm ready for y'all to get here. Y'all gonna be here in March, you said. So
yes,
that
down there in March.
M. Night Shyamalan's got out. It's called Caddo Lake.
Yep.
Yes.
Cattle, and it's a natural lake. That's the thing about it. Don Henley from the Eagles used to come down, and some things were going wrong with Caddo. He raised a lot of money for that. He also did for the Linden Hospital, and being a hometown boy from Linden, Texas. And so, but it's got its own aura, its own mystique, and pretty doggone good people there. There's fixing to be another there. That's where Keith Crabtree's moving to as soon as he retires from his deal. We've got the Keith Crabtree a Halloween camp out there that he does for kids there, so they can come trick or treat in contests and stuff.
Wow.
I said, I'm fixing to do a deal here with a Texla research group here again that we did some things in the spring right there, doing some video and then fixing to do some more there. So I'm looking forward to that. That's kind of some of the things that I've got going on here, and going to have a couple more things like that. But I'm trying to stay busy, and I'm fixing all my stuff is over. I'm getting back from Greece, getting through with the Louisiana Bigfoot Conference stuff. I'm fixing to get into the woods this week where there's me and there's Bigfoot, and we're going to just going to have a meeting of the minds, and I hope he don't mind. Let's put it that way. So that's
Well,
that's going to happen this week for sure, because I'm excited about it. And I've got a buddy that's a good researcher, smart man. He goes with me now, and boy, he really adds a lot to it. He's the one that cut open the hollow log for me and hauled it out so I can put my cameras in there, and little baby Bigfoot walk by, and all of a sudden it takes their picture and they're holding their hand up, sitting there trying to keep the light out of their eyes. So enjoy visiting with him. That's going to be a lot of fun too. And then like I said, deer season, gosh, I get calls just about every day. Man, you ever heard of Bigfoot coming around here and stealing people's deer? Yeah. Had a big Had a big 7-point stolen years and years ago. My buddy from down there in Kisatchie, he had one stolen. One of the biggest insurance men here in Texas County, he had one stolen. They just walk up and get it, and they're like, "Well, I dare you to do something about it," And,
Right. All you do is, can you let me know if it was good?
Exactly. Like my wife said about having more kids, I can kill another deer. He can have that deer as far as that goes.
That's right. That's right. Was it good? Well, anyway, let's wind the show down and
wind it down, Brando.
And like I said, Will, it's always a joy to have you on our show, regardless if we can see you or not. It doesn't, honestly. Your stories and everything are so entertaining and so informative.
Oh, yeah.
We don't,
I didn't even notice. Didn't even miss a blink. It was so great.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Some folks may say, "Yeah, he's better off without his face there. He's got that face for radio." So anyway, but
both, brother.
I'm truthful with you, and I enjoy sharing this with you. I wish some of you could be there if you're not a believer in some of these encounters that we had there. Man, all of a sudden it will change your perspective, and it won't make you where you're either slanted one way or another. It's not going to make you crazy. I'm certainly not crazy, but to get to see these things and share with you guys, y'all got some really, really smart listeners there in chat. You're not going to pull the wool over their eyes, man.
No.
If I tried that would be an insult to them and y'all. But I'm going to tell you what's happened. It may seem uncanny, but that's the way it went right there. And I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. Yep. So that's not a figment of my imagination or anything else like that. I'm going to tell you what I think if it's just a thought, but then if it's something that's happening, I'm not going to spare that either. If it's happening, what I'm telling y'all is real. So again, I thank y'all for listening. Thanks to our veterans that we have there that have made all this possible for us as well too, because that really, some of them paid the ultimate price, and boy, that means so much. That we get to do what we do. I still consider myself a whippersnapper at 65 years old, but I've been able to do this now for 47 years. Man, that's crazy. And I get to do that because of the things that they do. So, and then because of what y'all do, thank you. Let's remember Duke too. Duke is going to have surgery tomorrow. Keep him in your prayers, if you will. Yeah. And the things that we have here, pray for our nation and pray for each other, man. And it means a lot. That we able to have the freedoms that what we have. And one of the freedoms is to be able to go out in the doggone woods. And, if you want to kill a deer, if you want to sit there on a stump, or you want to watch Bigfoot, you can do that too. So I'm very grateful for everybody who listened, for y'all having me on here. Like I said, I'm going to have you another book pretty soon. I think you're going to be pleased with it. It's going to have more pictures. I'm not going to be limited like I was the first time I get there. And
there you go.
Well, the first book was fantastic. I look forward to the second book. And as you well know, Will, you're on with me every December during the holiday season. So I'll be calling you for that one. I have all the great people in December.
Well, I will have these doggone cameras fixed, man.
Sorry, Tex.
I promise you, I'll have these cameras fixed, or I'll have a new computer one way or another. Like I said, I don't know what happened. Something must have happened while we were in Greece there for those 10 days. And besides me losing 14 pounds, y'all won't recognize me, man.
Wow.
Hey, you look like a Greek god, because I know that you have you pumped the iron back in the day.
Yep.
You're a power lifter, right?
I'm getting to exercise now, not getting to pump as much because of weight limitations, because it's bad shoulder. But I'm trying to get back in there. I've got a beautiful wife. I don't want her walking off with somebody else who's she's liable to think more handsome or can whoop my behind. So at least I'm gonna put up a scrap with somebody. But no,
William, us guys, when we get older, we got to work harder to keep the women. So.
I guarantee, and we got to work harder to get them too. So I can't afford to let the one go that I got.
That's why you got to grab them when they're young. When you're young, you grab them, you snag them, you reel them in.
That's it.
You train them.
You
And
throw
we-
them in your boat. I mean, come on.
We've been married 43 years. And when you've got a woman that will go Bigfoot hunting with you, like my wife does me,
That's
you've
the
got a
catch.
winner. I
She
don't.
does.
She
You're
does.
not throwing that back in the water.
That's exactly right, but it's not catch and release with her. It
No.
may be not as much catch as it used to be, but it sure ain't gonna be no release either, as far as that.
That's what I said.
I'm
You got
just
to
kidding,
reel them in
folks.
and throw them in the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't
All
want to
right,
call her
everybody.
out. Hey,
Yeah, little Patty, I was kidding. You know my humor.
No, you bet, man. Me too. Like I said, I've been
Hey,
married to
Will,
the same
do
one
me-
43 years. Wouldn't trade her in for love or money or marbles or chalk, either one, man. Just
I
a
hear
happy
that.
hour. And if y'all met her, I think y'all would enjoy meeting her too. So,
Yeah.
Hey, do me a
Sweetest
favor,
soul.
Will.
So she has the
time
sweetest soul.
yep. So,
Hey,
well, guys, I love y'all, man. I appreciate y'all for what you do. Again, for what
Yep.
you've done for me, help me promote my book and everything. And like I said, I hope to have y'all on again soon. And y'all have me back on if you will. And I will have my computers fixed. Hopefully, my voice is going to hold out here now finally. And so I'm very excited about getting back in here again. So just give me a buzz, and we'll get everything lined up, folks. Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
hey, Will.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Hey, do me a favor. Next time
Yeah.
you talk to Keith, tell him I said hi.
I'll do it, buddy. I'll certainly do it. He, I talk to him about 3 or 4 times a week, and
wow, cool.
he's Keith is a lot of the reason we're doing what we're doing. Played the monster in the Legend of Boggy Creek,
Yeah,
and boy,
absolutely.
played it just
Right.
to a T. And as good a guy, man. When he's out there, people flock around him, man, like flies do around honey. But he's such just a genuine old guy. He's about 6'7", about 340. He and I were standing there not too long ago, and somebody looked at he and I. That you two guys look like a tag team wrestling.
Yeah.
Well, we don't wrestle, I said, but I'm glad to have him as a friend, and I am so
He's cool
glad to
guy.
have him. Yeah. So, guys, I'm gonna let y'all get out here. I know y'all are probably sleepy because I'll continue to talk if I can, but I appreciate what y'all do for me and for everybody.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Tune in tomorrow night to Blondes and Booze at 7 p.m. Central. We'll be talking about Ape Canyon.
Oh, good. Hey, Canyon.
So we're going to be talking
That's
that
good.
tomorrow night.
Fantastic classic. And no, little Patty, go Lions, not the Chiefs, for Lord's sakes.
Go Chiefs. Okay.
Well, they actually found some of the remnants from that cabin that they said never existed. They found nails and boards and things like that down. They had to rappel down the side of a cliff. They actually found nails and boards. So I'll have.
Wow.
Yeah. So if I can find that story, I'll send it to y'all. But man, for that right there,
Awesome.
Oh no, that never happened. What, 1924 or something like that? About the same
Yeah.
time as Albert Osman. And when they find something other like that, it's kind of hard to deny that kind of evidence.
Yeah. If you run across that story, send it to me.
I will. I'll do it so you can share it with everybody else too.
All right. That's awesome. All right, everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central. Have a great evening. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks to everybody. Appreciate it, man. Thanks to y'all.
Have a good one, Will.
Y'all too, buddy.
All right.
Find the button.
Oh.